Hi guys, Rick here from New to Photo, and in this video we're going to have a look at an image edit number 3, which is an edit of this image, which I took about a year ago. Okay, so here we are back in Lightroom. Oops. I always press that button too many times. I think Mark did the same in his last video as well. Okay, image edit number 3. We're going to have a quick look at this one. Now, I've already created a virtual copy because this is my original edit that I shot a year ago, and it's a simple case of going right click, create virtual copy. Excuse me, losing my voice. So we have a virtual copy here. Now, I've had Lightroom render the one-to-one previews already. Unlike my first video, so at least now it zooms in quite quickly. We are already in the develop module. Okay, so we'll start working on this image now. Now I've reset this image already, so this is as it came out of camera, shot with the 50 f1.8, ISO 100 at f2.8 at 200th of a second with the Canon 500D. So first thing off the bat is the colour is a little bit off. It's got a little bit too much magenta, too much green in there, and it's possibly a little bit too warm, although we'll have a look as we go through the edit. Now, about this image, it was created with a Speedlight, a Canon 430 EX2 I believe, in a Westcott 28" Apollo. Love those things, great modifier. Use the Speedlight to do this because the Speedlight has a much faster flash duration, as in it kind of turns on, lights up, turns off really quickly, whereas the studio strobe, certainly the strobes that are in the studio that I was in, kind of turn on, light, and then turn off, so you end up getting motion blur. And at 200th of a second, your shutter speed's not really going to stop someone motion blur from spinning the head back and forth to flick the hair around. So this is Kathryn, by the way. I asked her just to have a bit of fun and flicking her hair around. Obviously there's a selection of images here. I'm just working, and we're doing a shot like this, you're going to take a couple of frames because you need to get your timing down and give yourself a good choice later on. So first off the bat, I'm not going to use any of the presets because these are for, well, some of them are for the 5D2, although I will use this preset, which is just push exposure 0.09. Sounds daft doing it that little much, but it's just a little bit. It's not a third of a stop, it's like a tenth. But it's usually something I end up doing to plus 0.9 or plus 1.8. I like to get exposure as bang on as I can in camera, and I'm a firm believer that there's no excuse otherwise. Exposure is something you can get in camera. Okay, so next we'll go on to the strong contrast curve, which is how I always work. It really pumps the contrast up. I like working on a strong contrast curve, and then we'll look at taking off the curve just a fraction, probably to plus 17 thereabouts. Black levels look quite good. This is going quite dark because it's the shadow side, the light's coming from this side, but it's still fairly open. The modifier 28" softbox was fairly close, still nice soft light source, and that's why the shadows are quite open. Now, speaking of the modifier and the light, the background is a dark blue. It's actually a fairly light blue paper, seamless, but because I've had Katie move forward from the seamless and I've feathered the softbox away from her, not enough or not a lot of light is getting onto the background, so it goes a deeper, darker shade of blue. And if we look on the histogram here, the blue channel is going off into the shadows. Okay, now, so strong contrast curve, back off on the contrast a little bit, plus 0.09 on the exposure, and I'm just going to back off the saturation and the vibrance a little bit, because as you pump the contrast it lifts the colours up a little bit, kind of makes them look a little bit too poppy. And we're going to now change the colour temperature. You can use the picker tool in Lightroom, and that's just horrible, but you need to have a good source to meet the white balance from. And if we pick kind of a grey area here, no, that's not going to work. Okay, we'll do this manually. So we'll do as shot, there we go, and it's probably got a little bit too much green, so I'm going to pump up the magenta just a little too much, but then it goes really pink. Okay, probably something around +10 to start with, and the colour temperature, I can back off a little bit. That's a little bit cooler, a little bit warmer, a little bit warm. Whoa, suntan. And let's back that off a little bit. So I'm looking for good colour, good contrast. Okay, the Westcott tends to be a little cool in terms of colour temperature from it because it's a silver reflective, but it does make it fairly efficient in output. Okay, let's stick with that. That's not too bad. Colour looks quite good there. I could probably bring the contrast actually up just a hair, not too much, and you see what it starts to do. So we'll back it off some. There we go. That's looking quite nice in terms of colour there. Now, like I said, the background's dark. I don't mind that at all. It helps Kathryn stand out. Now, I usually a little bit of clarity, not too much because, oh, that just looks horrible. Okay. So a little bit of clarity. Now, I have some blemishes here to deal with. So, in Lightroom, you can do retouching in Lightroom, not quite as advanced as Photoshop. Although I don't fancy running a screencast with Photoshop and Lightroom running. So we'll do it with the heal or the clone tool. Opacity set to 100%, and the size you can use just the wheel on your mouse or the bracket keys to change this. Now what I am going to do is hit spacebar and zoom in once on, and we'll just start to remove some of these blemishes. I'll go over them all in this edit video like I did on the original edit because it'll take a while obviously to go through those, but I'm just going to select an area around it, and then if Lightroom makes an absolute rubbish area for the removal, you can remove it or maybe resize the selection area later on. Okay, I try and get it as close as I can so it just kind of surrounds that area. What you've got to watch is when you select if Lightroom starts an area which goes from highlight to shadow, sometimes it can look a little bit funny and may need a bit adjusting. So, see where it picks there. Now watch this, it's going to bring in a hair there. Okay, well done there, Lightroom. So we'll move this around to this side. I know I'm kind of grabbing some other blemishes when I do move it around, and that can happen, but you can kind of deal with those later on if you do some skin softening. So, I mean, some blemishes may need to go into Photoshop, but we will see. Now, initially as well, one tip when you're doing the heal or clone tool in Lightroom, because you're staring at the thing at 100%, and sometimes you can remove something, you know, just where Lightroom selected, and you think I can still see it, it's still there. Just take a moment, look away, and then go back, and you'll find it doesn't look half as bad. You just get so fixated on seeing something there because you're working so close. Okay, so we'll select that one there, and this is just a quick rough edit on this, just so you get the picture, because this is really slowing down with the screencast running. There we go. Now, one thing to note as well when removing blemishes is be careful which ones you remove. For example, it's kind of like a birthmark or a scar. I would ask the person, even if it's on like a TFP model shoot or whatever, it's just common courtesy. That scar may have meaning, you know, to them, and they may well want it leaving in. They might want it removing, but give them the choice. So there we go. Down there, and if you take your mouse over to the control panel, it will lose all the markers, and you can have a quick look. So you get the idea how you can start to remove some blemishes. And like I say, sometimes you will need to go into Photoshop to deal with some of them. And you know, blemishes aren't necessarily a bad thing, they're natural, you know, everybody has them. There we go. So I think what I'll do is, rather than carrying on doing that, because it will take a little while, And remember, we were zoomed in, so that looks a lot better already. When we zoom back out, is I'm going to run over and do a little bit of skin softening. Not saying that Kathryn needs it, but sometimes it does help just finish off the image. I don't do this to every single image, but for some I do. Now you go onto the brush, skin softening. I have a couple of presets set here, so I'll do sharpening 4, -51. Now I never work with the brushes at full flow because they're just too aggressive. I always back them off some to around 70-75%. I won't do auto mask. There's no real need to. You don't have to go pixel accurate here. So if we go on to, if we hit O, we're now going to be able to see where we're brushing in because it marks it for us. Okay, and you don't really have to be super accurate going around things like the eyelashes. I usually give the eyes, or underneath the eye, a couple of swipes, because it just softens that under area where you may get bags, you may get some lines, for example. And you just go around the area of the face with the softening brush and just marking out where you want the skin softening to be. Now obviously she's been flicking a hair around, so I'm going to go over some hairs here. I'm not going to zoom in and pixel people and go around each individual hair because there's not enough time in the day. So let's just roughly go over. Now generally when I do skin softening, I like to cover any area of skin that I can see, unless it's really out of focus like the shoulder is here. You know, there's not a whole lot of point in doing that. So we'll just go over here. Now I am going to zoom in a little bit for this area. If you notice, the brush has a little bit of a feather to it as well, so it's not too hard of a brush. I'm holding spacebar as I move the image. There we go. Now the area underneath the forehead, you can see there's just no point in doing that. There's just too much hair away there. I'll just go over this section here where we can see the top of the lip and around the mouth, and we're probably there on that. Okay, let's cover that section. Now when you press O again, it gets rid of the marker. It's just so you can see where you've applied your brush. Now, oh, and I've missed an eye, so I'll go over that. Now we'll just go over that section there. Now I've seen people editing who will retouch eyes. I mean, I know Kathryn's are closed here, so no real worry. And my take on retouching eyes is don't bother. Light them correctly, make sure they get light in their eyes, pose them correctly so they get light in their eyes if you want their eyes lit. Don't go and brighten the eyes after the fact because they start to look like something out of Stargate. Okay, so we'll remove the marker and you can just hit this tab here to see the results. That's skin softening off and on. It's very slow. Okay, and you can of course make sure that brush starting point is selected, and you can then make into that. Ooh, don't want to do that, and don't really want to go all the way down, so I might do a little bit more than where it was at before and call that good, so we can close that. Okay, so that's pretty much the final edit there. I may just add a little bit more contrast, and I think I can call it good. Now all I need to do now is do some sharpening. Now I know normally I would go in and remove some more of these blemishes, probably as well, but in the interest of time we'll just go to sharpening. Use a radius of 1.1.2, detail I leave it there. Sharpening is probably around 30 to 35, something like that. Certainly for the 500D files you can't really go too high up on those because you start to get artifacts, I find, and I mean that's plenty sharp enough. Okay, so let's have a quick look. One last change, okay, is I'm just going to bring up the magenta a little bit more, so we start to see the colour in the cheeks come in. There we go. So we'll type the value in. So we're going to go plus 8, maybe a little bit lower, 15. There we go. Okay, I'll call that good. So that's the final image edit. Okay, in Lightroom, some fairly simple changes. Takes a bit longer when you're talking, but generally you're looking, you know, under 10 minutes for each image. And the fact is, once you've done a series of one image that's in a series, consistent editing, you can just synchronize them. So no problem there. Remember, I did also do of the original image as well, but I actually prefer the colour version there. So that's it, just a quick image, or semi-quick image of this picture in Lightroom. If you've got any questions or comments, stick them below, send us an email, and we will have another image edit video, I'm sure, at some point in the near future. It's quite easy to do, and we've got some new tutorial videos coming up as well, so look forward to those. Thanks for watching, guys. Catch you guys soon.